Hi, I'm Amy Andrews.
And I'm Ali Blake, and welcome to How to Watch Movies Like a Writer. I'm a little bit excited today, Miss Amy, because this is my first time doing one of these. You guys do it and blow my mind with your the way you've broken down the films we've done so far, but also because this is one of my favourite films ever. So today, if you haven't picked up on it already, we're going to be talking about Notting Hill. So, which is go with our first question that we always ask with these is, did you like the film?
I think like.
So what are your thoughts?
I think like is the biggest understatement in the world. This is, I think, it is in my top 10, probably my top 5, definitely my top 10 of rom-coms of all time. I love that it's written by Richard Curtis again. And interestingly, I actually went and looked at the films that he'd written while I was watching this today. And he'd written 3 out of the top 10 movies of mine that are in my kind of top 10. He'd written Love Actually, and he'd written Bridget Jones's Diary, but he also wrote for Blackadder, and he wrote for Mr. Bean, he wrote Vicar of Dibley, like all these things I didn't realise he'd written, which so goes to show his like comedic chops, which are so prevalent in this, beautiful movie.
100%. Yeah, I'm with you. This is, as I mentioned, this is one of my favorites. Not even just favorite rom-com. This would be my top 3 movies ever. I love it that much. Yeah. I've seen it so many times. I don't know if you can notice the little sign I have in the background there, which is Notting Hill Gate sign in my office. My husband and I, the first house we ever bought was in a tiny little suburb in Melbourne called Notting Hill. To say that was one of the reasons why we picked that house, that would be a yes, because to be able to say that, like, this is how much I love this movie. It's just been a part of kind of even my, what was that?
Did it have a blue door?
It didn't have a blue door. I didn't paint it blue either. So, because blue is not my favorite color. So I left that one to the lovely Hugh Grant. But yeah, so absolutely, this is an absolute favorite of mine as well. So it was really thrilling actually to sit down and rewatch it again, looking through the lens of this program. So having seen it that many times, I know so much of it off by heart. I know the bits that I love. I know the moments that mean something to me, not just to everybody, but to actually sit down and look at it through the lens of watching a film like a writer it just enhanced the experience again for me. How about for you? Did that take away any of the magic, or did you find things in it that were just even more amazing?
I think it's interesting to look at analytically. We've done it a couple of times now, and you don't realise that it hasn't taken away my enjoyment at all. In fact, I think it's made me kind of dig deeper to really notice the things that I hadn't really clocked. I guess probably somewhere subliminally I'd clocked it, but not really kind of realised the cleverness of the writing and a lot of the kind of echoes throughout the entire, movie. It's just sort of lovely, and it didn't ruin my enjoyment, because I went to write down a bunch of different, dialogue that I liked, and I found that oftentimes I'll have to like pause and rewind to make sure I've got the, it actually right. But because I've heard it like all a zillion times, I didn't even have to rewind. I knew that I got it working every time.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing? It's so wonderful, and it shows the power. When you look at something filmically, the power of dialogue is huge. Like there's a slight difference between books and movies, because they can show so much in one image, whereas we have to sort of use a lot more words to get the same thing across. But I think there's still so much value in seeing how they go about it that can be transposed to writing as well. So when we're looking at rom-coms, especially for these first few episodes, and looking at tropes, that was actually a really interesting one to kind of sit down and try to figure out. To me, there's like one massive trope, and then the rest of them are quite subtle. Like, so what tropes did you find in it?
Well, I guess it's like the famous versus the ordinary, isn't it? Or the Prince and the Pauper, or even like opposites attract, I suppose. They're kind of all part of the one thing. I think oftentimes there is more than one kind of bigger trope, isn't there, in films or in books. But I really felt like this was the dominating thing. It was the beginning and the end. That was where it summed up their conflict in one kind of nutshell. They come from completely different worlds, and how they were going to make that work. Yeah,
for sure. And to me, it was that subverted Cinderella, which is probably that same kind of thing when you're looking at the fact that she's her character is very much the sort of the usual, you know, the prince character, and his character is very much the Cinderella. So, which again looks at that, the sort of the two different worlds that they're coming from, and they did such a beautiful job that we'll cover in this, of how they managed to kind of bring those worlds sort of together and prove to us, make us believe that you know, when we turn off the movie, they can have that happily ever after, even though they come from such different places. But what about the opening of the film? So when the movie starts, hopefully some of you have watched, you know, rewatched the movie or watched it for the first time before coming to join us here. But how it starts instantly with the song. I mean, the song is just one of those things that you can't necessarily do in bookish form, because it was just such a, I literally tear up every time I hear that song. I think it was so beautifully chosen. So Elvis Costello is playing over the top of this montage of these beautiful shots of Julia Roberts, aka Anna Scott, as, you know, clearly positioning her as the biggest movie star in the world. And then we cut to the hero, who's just walking through the streets in a very ordinary life. And I think it was presented just superbly. They didn't hold back on any of that, the fact where they position them. So did you find that opening gripping? Like, yeah,
absolutely. It was the contrast of their lives right from the start. That was a conflict right there, right at the beginning, you know, large. The whole thing was, she's from this world, he's from that world. And then I think, you know, I know we'll talk about tension later on, but I think they did lots of things like that throughout the movie to keep that tension going, reminding you constantly that they're actually from two different worlds. And yeah, you do see bits and pieces about how they would manage that after, you know, you close the book, we turn off the film. But the constant, even like a bus goes by and her face is on it, like things like that, constantly set up their characters, constantly set up this conundrum. How can this possibly work when, you know, as he says, you know, I live in Notting Hill, you live in Beverly Hills. That was conflict in a nutshell as well.
Yeah, so in a nutshell, yeah. So that's the external conflict for sure. Like, it's a massive external conflict. So we can talk a little bit about the internal conflicts later as well, because they're a lot more subtle, which often tends to be the case in romance novels and romance films as well. But the external one is as big as it can be. They live in completely different countries. Their lives are so different. So just even without having any internal conflict, the fact that you try to figure out how those two worlds are going to meld is a big one, very believable. Reasons why they clearly, from very early on, you can see that spark between them. But the reasons why you believe that they both kind of push and pull a little bit to actually try to make something of it, because there's just this great hurdle to get over. And I think that's so beautifully handled, just, you know, sort of continuing down that kind of spark that happens really quickly. And I think really paying attention to like the moments and the way when they first meet, there's kind of, it's very much a customer to, you know, to the shopkeeper kind of moment. Very quickly it dips into humor. And I think when they start to actually pay attention to one another's humor, that's when the spark starts. Like when Will he makes a couple of jokes about the Turkish book, and then he has to go to the thief who has the book down his pants. And I love that you've got Anna in the background kind of listening into this conversation as Will is dealing with this guy, and, you know, says to him, you know, ideally when I go back to my desk, you'll have taken out the Cadogan Guide to Bali out of your pants and either wiped it off and put it back, or buy it. And the whole time Anna's listening in and clearly just has this little smile on her face of going, this guy's actually pretty funny. But it's also, whether any of you guys out there have read Save the Cat by Blake Snyder, it's very much Save the Cat moment, which is something that he talks about as a thing that to get your hero or heroine to do very, very early in a story. They do something kind, they do something heroic, they do something funny, they do something that really kind of makes you like go, oh, okay, I'm really happy to follow this person. And I think that was a pure Save the Cat moment when he sort of stands up the thief. So what did you think of their initial spark?
Yeah, I think he could have definitely, you know, called the police, and it could have gone a completely different way altogether. And the fact that it's a rom-com, that Save the Cat moment, a rom-com, I think that moment has to be funny. Is that that's kind of the thing that, you know, right from the beginning, it lets you know that this movie is going to be, you know, it's going to be funny. There's going to be humor in it. I was writing down the scenes that I love. I've got like 2 pages of it. It's like the whole movie is just like one big scene that I love.
Easy.
It was, I think it also set up their characters, him being this sort of, talk too much when he's nervous, kind of diffident English, very English kind of guy, and her being almost kind of aloof, sort of, Hollywood princess, because, he's trying to get her to buy the book that's better, but she's determined not to, her own way of doing it. And I just, it just sets them up in their ordinary worlds a kind of way, as well. But I guess at that point in time, it's not quite kind of the call to change yet, but it's sort of setting both of them up in ordinary worlds, and done with such humor and lightness and deft, and it has those quirky characters that have already sort of started to come into it, even in that scene with the I know Bernie's not in it yet, but I love that scene. I love the opening scene.
Yeah, there's so much goodness to it, and it also sets William up as being very kind, and I think that is a really big kind of through line through his character as well. There's a real, the sort of the things that he does and decisions that he makes, for all that they have flaws and foibles, there's just a real kind of kindness all the way through the film. So when he does that, he gives the guy a chance to kind of own up and move on rather than calling the police. And I think it's just, you can see that Anna kind of responds to that. I think she's probably surrounded by a lot of unkind people, and so see this kind of gentleness in him. Definitely, I think is really appealing to her as well. And I love the clothing in that scene as well. I think you mentioned it beautifully in saying that he's just kind of this different kind of open, warm, sort of puppy dog sort of almost character. And the fact that she's all in black, she's got the black beret, the black sunglasses, the black jacket, and she is that. It's just not just even the fact that she's just like a famous person trying to like hide behind sunglasses. That just sums up her character the entire way through the movie. That it's that subverted Cinderella, in that we get to know so much about him and his friends and his life, but we know so little about her to the very, very end. And there's so many moments throughout it that we have to kind of accept the little bits that she gives us, because she's very, we really don't get to know much about her the whole way through the story. So, which again is just,
and I like that she responds with humor as well in that situation, like when the thief asks for the autograph to be signed, she writes, "Dear Rupert, you should be in jail," or whatever. So you can see that he has a reciprocal sense of humour as well. So
100%, which is clearly has to be a big thing for him, because later on when you see him with his friends, like their love language is humour. So you can see that the fact that she has that kind of wit and that spark definitely kind of gives you those moments of I call them kind of the why him, why her moments. And there's little things that you think, what is it about this person that particularly calls them as opposed to someone else? And I think that's one of those things. They both have this great sense of humor that is definitely kind of appealing to both of them.
Yes.
I think, and sort of touching on like character as well, when you're looking at the secondary characters that are so important in the film. And that's a big thing you'll find a lot of, for those keen on writing romance, is that focus on the hero and the heroine, or the two lead characters, is all important, but yet sometimes the secondary characters can be massively important as the foils, as the people who know them best, who, if we like Will's friends and they love him, then we know that gives him extra levels of lovability. And again, fascinating that he has all of these people in his life who love him. And again, she is just on her own. Like, the only people we see her with are managers and publicists and co-stars that she clearly doesn't particularly get along with. Like, it's a fascinating use of secondary characters.
And she's very guarded. Like, she's, even with those people that she's very guarded. Like she says, as if I would tell my life story as the most indiscreet man in England. Whereas his friends clearly know everything about each other. They've been friends for years. Like they know him as Flopsy from school, and their lives are all just open books. And she has to live this life that is much more, careful and guarded. And who's gonna, if I say this to somebody, will they report it to will it go to a newspaper? Will someone try to sneak a picture of me? There's a continual, to me, it just continually sets up how different they are, and that's what keeps attention going. Externally, it's just well, it's just they're so this is just how how possible will this be? Because it's just so different. It's great fairy tale, isn't it? But in reality, how's it going to work?
Yeah, and I think it's beautiful, like sort of cutting ahead a little bit to the scene where she does get to meet his friends for the first time, and just seeing, you almost see this yearning in her, that she just sees how lovely and open and honest and bumbling and self-deprecating are with one another, that you can see he's coming from a place of having to be very solitary, and being surrounded by all this warmth and love and humor is just, again, there's that why him. I think that she looks at his life and goes, oh my gosh, like, imagine the life that I have compared to this is magic. Like, you know, not being the big, rich, famous, award-winning, you know, all of that's nonsense, as she says later. It's like, to be in that place of warmth and understanding and everybody sort of laughing at each other and laughing at themselves is very appealing to her. So it's a beautiful stuff.
Even how much she yearns for that in that scene where he asks her to, he says, oh no, I can't because I've got my sister's birthday party time. It's okay, I'll call it off. And she's like, oh no, I can go with you. Like, she's really, and she really wants, she's kind of yearning for it. He's thinking she's not going to want to go to my sister's birthday party because she's Anna. And she's like, oh, well, I'd like to if you want to, if that's okay. There's a lot of yearning. Like, you know, her trying to say, I am just underneath all this, I am just a normal person who does normal things, or would like to be our way.
Yes, sure. So I think that's so beautifully done, because you think at first glance that hers is the aspirational life, like hers is the life that everybody would want, whereas in the end it very much shows you that, you know, for all that he makes mistakes and doesn't earn a lot of money and is divorced and all these kind of things you might look at sort of failings, his life is very much the one that you can picture at the end. That's their real life they fall into at the end, and which is just, it's just beautifully set up. I love it. So I think I'm going to have a little look at, I want to make sure we cover a lot about the story structure in the chat, because in the How to Write Love course, Notting Hill is one of the movies that we do focus on quite a bit when it comes to talking about story structure, because it's handled so beautifully. Certain parts, especially the end of the movie, is just gloriously a glorious example of how to go about it. But I want to make sure that we touch on different story beats that are great romantic story beats as well. For the because I know some of you out there will be like, I don't want to hear about structure, it just terrifies me. But in the How to Write Love course, we break it down in a way that makes it extremely palatable and understandable and simple. And using examples from Notting Hill, hopefully this will help you guys as well. But we do go deeper in the course. But I do want to touch on it because it's such a great movie for it. So it's that interesting, and it has the prologue. It has the old world where you see them set up at the beginning. Then we have kind of an inciting incident. And again, these things can kind of be layered and leveled. But you know, the two of them meeting at the beginning, then like, to have that classic kind of that second meet cute when they get into each other with the orange juice, and having this, it's almost like this inciting incident and then deliberation, which are two really strong story structure points that a lot of romance novels and books in general hit, happen in like a minute, because they bang into each other with the orange juice. He says, look, come with me to my house, it's just around the corner. And she's like, how far? to in yards. And he's like, that one over there with the blue door. Then she has to think, do I go with this person who I don't know, or do I just go with my normal life and never see him again? And the fact that she goes, okay, let's go change me, it just changes everything. That suddenly they've gone from, and it's something actually that happens a lot, is the power balance goes like this the entire way through the movie, that she has the upper hand in the first scene, but suddenly in this scene he's the one who goes, I can help you. That happens constantly. That's something I really noticed in rewatching it. But yeah, that dynamic shift happens again when she goes up to get changed, and when she comes downstairs and she's all kind of, sunglasses are off, glam, you know, in a sparkly dress and looking very cute. And he just goes like a, you know, like a cartoon dog with his tongue hanging out. It's just very like, just completely like, you could imagine like hearts over the top of his head. But again, then suddenly she's the one who has the power in it. It's this beautiful kind of evening out, like, oh, you know, they have this great balance the whole way through. But yeah, the dynamic shifts are amazing. And you see how through those scenes, you see that they're both charming and charmed as well. Like you can see them becoming more and more charmed by one another. Which is beautiful. And something else I wrote down too, just going back to sort of the fact that he seems very sort of a bit like a lost boy, like character archetype. He could be a bit of a lost, he's a bit of a lost soul. Then he shows so many moments of bravery through it as well, when the fact that he does sort of talk and joke to her, the fact that he does say, come to my place, the fact that he does say heavenly, the fact when he's, talking to her, like he has these moments of bravery that are really compelling, that for a sort of a beta hero in that kind of, Cinderella role, he definitely has these moments where you can go, oh, like, which really, really appealing as well.
Even when he says the second time she comes to his door and she's in trouble after they've had their big bust up the first time, he could have said no, but he says, come in. Again, bravery, because he knows his heart's could possibly be stomped all over again, but he's going to do it. Brave. Yeah,
100%. It's bravery and kindness. It's like there's this real through line, and of them I think they both have this. It's a very gentle, delicate, vulnerable film, and there's just this, for all that it's like funny ha, and it has these broad secondary characters with these hugely broad jokes all the way through it. There's just this beautiful delicacy to it that I think Julia very much, whatever choices she made and how she decided to act the character, there's this, you feel this complete fragility the way through. And I think there's this, that beautiful vulnerability and bravery, a part of what makes it so heartwarming and makes it so beloved, because you feel that these people are having to be so brave in love, and and it completely, like, it tugs you towards them, and you really, really root for them. So thinking of all those character choices in your own writing as to the way the characters are and the way that they change and the way that they go outside of their own comfort zone to kind of make changes and be more brave. All of these things are really compelling for an audience, for a reader as well. So there's so much in the characterization in this movie
and it pushes the story forward as well. It keeps the story going forward. These kind of, take a step, take a risk, backfires, kind of take a step back, and then you have to keep going. You go back to go forward all the time. So it's that sort of push pull. Yeah,
and that's her as well. Like when she's the one who, when she comes back to pick up the bag, and she's the one who just draws him in for a kiss, and the fact that she's the one to instigate it, and he's just too surprised to do it. He's just going to stand there with his hands in his pockets. But you can see that when she pulls away, there's this moment of kind of dreaminess that comes over her. Like, it's not just him meeting this amazing dream of a woman or anything like that. It's like she's just completely, she's like just so strangely smitten by him because of his sweetness and his kindness and his humor really, really quickly. But is that beautiful bravery and that step forward, step back.
Yeah, that's a stretch. That kiss is amazing. And I know we're probably like jumping ahead, but that, I love in that, the acting in that is just like there's these 10, 20 seconds between both of them where no words are explained. There's no words, but they're looking at each other, and you can tell she's thinking, why did I do that? But hang on, that was really, that was okay, that was good. There's that silence that if you're writing it, and we talk about this when we talk about intimacy in the course, about you have to, that is the kind of stuff you have to write in your book to get across, to be like what that look is. That's what you're trying to achieve in your book, so the readers can really feel what they're feeling. That moment of, well, I think in that moment everything kind of changed, because it was that moment that I think then led her to invite him to come see her at the Ritz. If it had not been for that moment, she probably wouldn't have done it, because she was very perplexed by that kiss. Like it was so well acted. Those, like, nothing happens, but you can tell in their eyes. It's so good.
And the glory of having you're counting, a filmmaker is counting on the actors to get that, whereas we're so lucky that we can be inside the character's head, one of their heads, both of their heads, whichever way you go, to kind of know what they're feeling and know what they're thinking and know how things change. Because anytime there's a moment like that, that point of change in the relationship is really important. So aftermath of that, if you sort of watch it back again, when you see how they act with each other before the kiss, and then even those 2 or 3 sentences after the kiss, you can see everything's changed. They suddenly kind of relax a little bit with each other. They suddenly, again, that kind of the dynamic kind of shifts again, and there's a comfort, there's a difference in the tone, there's a difference with how close they stand together. It's like suddenly just everything just goes, and it's like, as you say, that how it propels the story forward. Everything just kind of speeds up to a point that would never have happened without. It would have taken a lot longer to get to that point without the kiss. So having that moment, it's being able to kind of change the tension and change the tone, and it has to have meaning. is done so beautifully, and it's such a great example for book writers as well, because anytime there's a moment like that, there has to be an effect, and you watch the effect in this. It's really real.
And I think that's what a lot of writers, particularly new writers, miss out on. That they don't take you into that moment. The characters will kiss, and then that will be it. You're not taken into the moment in their heads, into their thoughts, into their, because everything has changed. So the reader wants to understand that. You get that emotional depth and that sort of much deeper meaning to the whole, the whole scene. It's a big moment, like when characters have sex for the first time, big moments, right? So you need to be in the characters' heads for that. On film, they can do it with a look. You're going to have to write that in your book, and I think that we go into that in the course. How to sort of dig in for those emotional moments in the course to really get that look into your writing.
Yeah, 100%. And I think I even kind of create, like, whenever I do any scene like that, I'll always have like a little heading that says aftermath. Like what happened? What is the kind of fallout of what just happened in this scene? Because it's so important that life can't just go on. Things have to have changed, and it's beautiful that it doesn't even kind of, this beautiful moment, as you say, that is just, you're just like, you stop reading through the whole thing as you're watching it, and then the door starts to open and in walks Spike, who just, and again, that power dynamic, that thing, she's just kissed him, and it's like this thing of, you say, my God, he's just been kissed by the most famous woman in the world who he adores and thinks is so beautiful. And then Spike walks in and says, just walks past, bum hanging out the back of his pants, and says to him, I'm going to tell you a story that's going to make your balls shrink to the size of raisins. And it's like suddenly Will's gone from here to just like to go, oh my God, he just said that in front of this girl who's just kissed me. Like, it's just, you can't feel like you've got a grip on anything the whole time. It's, again, that delicate, fragile, like any of it could snap at any point. Just because I think
the kiss in that moment, you were saying how one's up, one's down. The kiss in that moment brings them both. They're both in that moment. They're both actually. No one's a famous movie star. No one's ordinary. They're just two people that have shared this weird, strange, wonderful moment. So the power balance is completely neutral. And then you're right. And
I think you're right. And that's that aftermath. That's the first time they're like that. It's like they've kind of been like this the whole time, and then sort of in the aftermath there, they both just kind of, it's this beautiful scene to go back and rewatch it again, just to see that they both just kind of look at each other like people and are like, what just happened? We're in this weird bubble and it's only the two of us here. And it's just really comfortable somehow. Which usually it can go the opposite way, that first kiss can make everything, what have I done? Or, oh no, this is going to, like, it can be really fraught. Whereas this does the opposite. It just makes everything kind of like, okay, we can stop mucking about and just kind of look at each other now. And then Spike comes in and just completely completely ruins everything. So then they kind of just happen, the kind of the ups and downs keep happening again. It's just gorgeous. And that's really kind of the end of Act 1, because then Act 2 is where suddenly it's like they've kind of, will we, won't we, okay, the plan is we're actually going to do this. Like when he finds out that he's had the phone call to kind of meet her at the hotel. So clearly it's like she's instigating things. Is this going to happen? Oh my gosh, yes, it's going to happen. So we kind of hit Act 2, which tends to be kind of the fun and games act, where which I've heard it be called the trailer moment, whereas it tends to be that first half of Act 2 before the midpoint of the story, where a lot of the fun stuff happens, a lot of the stuff you'll see in the movie trailers. So we have the beautiful upside down world, which is often what happens at the beginning of Act 2, and that's where they've spent all of their time pretty much within Will's world. So we've been within his bookshop, we've been on the streets in Notting Hill, we've been in his apartment, and suddenly we start Will has to then go into her. So it's a big kind of flip to see how he's going to cope when he gets there. I mean, and the whole scene in the hotel, having to, like, the moments with her are just, again, delicate, beautiful, fraught. You can feel this draw between them, and then everything just keeps getting undercut constantly with him having to go and interview all of the other people. It's just a riot. It's such a fun scene. I reckon that's probably one of my favorites.
Even the bit where he in the hotel when she opens the door and she's obviously in panic because the boyfriend's there, but he leans in and kisses her, and that's awkward. He doesn't quite get her mouth. He doesn't get a cheek. It's I just, that was a moment I hadn't really clocked before. It's just, again, shows his awkward, diffident, very British guy. She's super cool, big name actress. I really like that moment.
Yeah, it's some great stuff. And there's like that when you continue on kind of with the fun and games, is like that's when the birthday party happens with Honey's birthday party. This is the part of the story that has the communal garden. This is the part of the story where the two of them go out to dinner, and Will hears the men talking and sort of being obnoxious jerks, talking about her, and he goes and stands up for her. Like, it's got some massive set scenes that are all still really intimate, but they very much sort of pushing the story forward and kind of showing them get to know each other in a really beautiful way. And it's sort of, again, it's like sometimes in his world, sometimes in her world. It's so beautifully done. And I think you get to see, this is where we get to see Anna a little more too, because again, she's been very aloof and we don't really know her terribly much. But I think in the birthday party scene, especially, when you see how gracious she is and how kind she is to his friends, even when they keep sticking their feet in their mouths the whole time, she's just delightful and funny. And yeah, it's so glorious, that. And then the communal garden scene, which is when you're looking at trying to set like a romantic set piece, that kind of, when you're looking at kind of the Hollywood moments, which is something that I love that Claire Connolly talks about, those moments that are ones that you just think are so romantic. They can be small, they can be big, but there's something about them that is just so kind of like, you feel kind of sigh-worthy at the end of it. And I think when they step into that communal garden, just the setting that's dripping in lushness and moonlight and beauty, and and to have that kind of the position for the second kiss, again, it's a different kind of kiss. It has a different kind of it's a little bit kind of, it's not as unexpected, or even it's unexpected in a different way, and he kisses her back. And I think for me, that communal garden scene is just the real kind of like heart flutter sort of big moment for me. Are there any particular scenes out of those that you really loved?
I love the communal garden scene. Actually, what struck me looking at going through, I love the birthday party scene. I love the interview scenes at the hotel where he starts off as, interviewing people, not knowing what to do. By the end, he's like asking them about their, the accidental, how did you approach this role? And, like
he gets into it by the end.
Kind of real expert suddenly on all that sort of thing. The thing that I actually thought about, I hadn't thought about before watching the movie, was actually how there's kind of two sort of areas where I thought addressed consent, although I don't know if that was necessarily the object of it. But in that communal garden scene, when she sits on the seat and he doesn't go and sit with her immediately, he's not sure what she wants to do.
Love that.
He kind of walks around in a way a bit, and he waits until she says, "Come sit with me," which I like. Just makes me swoon every time. But I hadn't really thought about it like that before, and I don't know if it is a demonstration of consent, but it really does fit into that. It's like she's inviting him, and then the same thing when I kind of wonder if
I saw those, and another moment you might be about to mention as well, that for the first time I really thought that scene had never kind of made so much sense to me as him not sitting down straight away, but really watching it carefully this time, I kind of went, the fact that he knows when she needs space and he's completely willing to give it to her, I just went, oh my God, that's like a massive tick for him. I really noticed that this time. And what was the other one you were going to mention?
Yeah, do you think it's that he knows he needs space? Maybe a bit. I just sort of think, because that was just him being so unsure of himself as well with her still. They kissed, but he's still not sure.
Could be, but her.
So maybe it does. Maybe it does make the way.
Yeah,
the other one,
I think he's natural. I think that's naturally. I think he's just naturally polite.
Yes.
There's like something to that that's just would be very appealing to her as well. I think there's just without thinking, that's just his natural way of being. And there was another moment of consent, sort of too earlier on.
So when she says, "Do you want to come up?" To the hotel, and he's like, obviously does, but he's like, well, there seems to be a lot of reasons why I shouldn't. And she says, yes, there is. And then she says, do you want to come up? So he hasn't gone, yes, I want to come up straight away. He's again done that kind of almost like a different kind of walk away around the chair, don't sit down thing until she's really, really sure, which I thought was really lovely as well. Like, I think that's like, he knows the situation's unsure. He wants her to be really sure.
Yep.
He doesn't want to, he doesn't want to happen what does happen in the end. Yeah.
There's also the fact that when she kissed him the first time, she kissed him without any kind of lead up. And when she invites him to the hotel, the first thing he says when he sits down, I wanted you to come here because of what happened. The fact I kissed you, I wanted to see if you were okay. And it was this like, whoa, that was before its time, like a thing for her to realize that she'd done that without any kind of precursor, and for her to kind of go, I just want to make sure that I haven't done the wrong thing or offended you or upset you or whatever. Like, I mean, I thought that was something I hadn't ever really clocked until watching it this time. I was like, gosh, that's just so beautifully handled. Like, they're so kind to one another. There's just so much thoughtfulness and respect and sweetness, and just underlying it all is just superb. And then you touched on the sort of the midpoint of the movie, which is he does go up to the hotel room and finds that he's not alone. Yeah, and so that midpoint is, again, when you look at it, it's literally the middle of the film. I stopped it, I paused it and said, to see what the time was, and it's like smack bang middle of the film. This happens. So things are happening in Act 1. Act 2, they start to get to know each other. Boom, the midpoint happens. And this is looking at story structure that we cover a lot in the How to Write course. The midpoint, everything changes in a big way, and from that point, things start to just. So, and it starts with her. I think the Alec Baldwin character is just so fantastically done, because when you actually listen to what he says, everything he says until he says that one line about, don't eat too much because I don't want them to say there goes that, famous actor with the girlfriend or whatever. You just want to go elbow him in the freaking head. But until that point, everything he says is actually quite affable and bit brash compared to, William is so, as you say, diffident, and that he's just so sort of a sweet kind of English about him, and the American boyfriend is quite bigger and louder, and a definite kind of difference there that you can feel a crackle of discomfort in Anna. But yeah, it's just so cleverly done. And then when Will actually, when Alec's character says, can you adios these dirty dishes, which is a line that like we say, and he then with the sad music, he's leaving with the rubbish and the dirty dishes. You just, honey, like, could you love him more in that moment? But he's so polite and so sweet. And again, take the rubbish away. That joke.
To me, that's continually reinforcing, very English, very diffident, very different from the big brash Hollywood boyfriend. Just continually going, this is a guy. I think they really made, I don't know whether it's deliberate or not, but really saying this guy is very English, this girl is very American as well, like in every single, and their word choices in that kind of, dynamic in their room at the time. I love that. I love that. And you're right, Alec Baldwin is just, And it makes you think, well, why is she even with him? What does she even see him? And I love that later she says, I just got to the point where I couldn't remember all the reasons why we were together in the first place.
And she's obviously hit that point before she's ever met William. You're aware of that. They probably haven't officially called things off, but she's like, in her mind, it was, and that thing of, she mentions at the dinner party about being attracted to cruel men, and she's obviously had this kind of certain type that she's been with because of the lifestyle that she has. So again, it just like shows a difference to what Will offers, that kind of why she's like, oh my gosh, like this is what I've had and this is what I have now. It's just so appealing, so wonderful. And then we have kind of that breakdown of like sort of Act 2, Part 2, where we have the montages of him seeing her everywhere. And, when one of the friends says, Anna is a goddess, and what happens to mortals who, hang out with gods, get involved with like buggered, every time. Like, just delightful lines. And his friends are so beautifully supportive, and you kind of think like, you feel that he's got this support and they're trying to find someone else for him, goes on the dates, whereas you don't see what happens to Anna. Again, we know so little about her, but who knows what she then has to go and deal with. Like, there's just this, I think this time around, I really felt this heartbreak of what her life, she's going back to, we don't know that she's got friends, family, any kind of support system
she's back
to go through with what she's going through. Yeah, it's like this beautifully handled, whereas he's got all of this kind of beautiful support. Again, it's kind of setting up the fact that this is the ideal. This is the one that we think if she, if she finally is able to kind of be a part of this, she's the one who's entered the cast. She's the one who's made the good decision at the end, kind of thing. And then, yeah, as you said earlier, that moment, this is kind of the act when mistakes are made as well. Kind of you tend to have like a ticking clock, and the bad guys close in and mistakes are made, and all of these things start to kind of disintegrate in this part of a story. And with her, with the nude pictures coming out, and when which she mentioned earlier, when she goes to his house and says, I didn't know where to go, and he's like, this is the place. Oh my God.
Yes.
Like, honestly, like it's two lines, and it just tells you everything and shows such strength in him and such vulnerability in her. Yeah, these two, the characterization, all that, it's like vignettes of like 3, 4, 5 lines in a scene, like scene after scene after scene. It's just the characterization is so superb. I love what I love about this too is that we get Anna scrubbed clean. She goes to have the bath, and when she comes down, she's just like messy hair, no makeup, daggy clothes, and you no longer see her in any kind of position of a movie starness. She just becomes very much a normal person living in his world for a while here, which is beautiful. 100%.
Yeah,
so good.
Right. Yeah, I like the balance is definitely sort of brought down. I like, and that's the the HEA guarantee that you talk about, Ali, in the course. How do you know they're going to last once the end or the film ends? And to me, it's those scenes where it's the scene where he says, when she's freaking out still, and he's like, don't worry about it, it'll be okay. What do you want? You want tea? You want a bath?
Yeah.
Like, in that moment, you know that whatever's gonna happen in there, afterlife, after happily ever after, that he'll always be kind of her touchstone. He'll always be the one there for her to help, bring her down, help solve problems. You kind of know what their life's going to be like, afterwards, as you pointed out earlier. That's going to be their kind of role. She's going to be big and super and wonderful, but he'll always be there, supporting her, behind her, always have her back.
Yep, 100%. So true. And it's so much of this, for all that's like she's going through something rough at the time. It is just those moments where you see them sitting down reading, and like he's reading something, she's reading something, and they're just hanging out together, and they're so comfortable together. It's just, for sure. It's just, they do such a strong job of creating that space that you do think once for us, once the book's closed, that they're going to be okay. This whole section sets that up so beautifully. And I think we start to see sort of a little bit more in here of, we've got that external conflict and the external tension with the fact that they're different lives, they live in different countries. But when you start to see more of that internal conflict, where I love the scene when they're out to dinner, and, when he talks about his divorce, and, she's like, what happened? And he says, she saw through me. It's like, again, 2 lines, but it just gives this, you can see that he's now fearful of that as well. Like, it's like, I'm what happens if anyone else sees through me? Am I going to be able to be in a relationship that's sustainable? And then you see for her as well, like when after the love scene and they're in bed together the next day, and she's talking about Rita Hayworth and how men go to bed with Gilda and they wake up with me, and I love how brave she is in asking him, like, is that how you feel? Like, I don't know that she'd ever have asked that of anyone else she's ever been with before, but she feels confident enough to ask him if that's how he feels. And again, you see that vulnerability. So that's the internal conflict, is their fear of getting hurt, their fear of not being loved, her fear of not being loved for who she is, but who people perceive her to be. So that's all the internal conflict that all blows up at the end, way more than the external conflict. That's the thing that means that they just had a big fight at the end, because she basically implodes everything, when the photographers come to the door, burst into their beautiful little suburban bowl. When she has that complete meltdown, to me, watching it, I'm kind of going, this is completely deliberate. She's doing this because it's like, you can see from her internal conflict, it's like, for all things are going well and she's so hopeful of this, it's like she knows that anytime she has to try to have anything normal with someone who's normal, it's always a disaster. So she's like, in that moment, she's like, I'm just going to blow it all up now, because I can't fall any deeper, because I'm only going to get hurt. So all of those little internal conflicts that have been set up, I think, in the big blow up moment, all that feeds into that so beautifully. So it's, in the end, it's like, which is as it should be, those internal fears and those internal conflicts are the things that end up stopping them from getting together and make us wonder whether it's ever going to turn out okay.
I know,
beautiful.
I know that. Except that to me, there's that one scene that's the only flaw in the entire movie, and kind of annoys me. And I've forgotten how much it annoyed me till I saw it again. Was that he lets her go to the door, knowing that all those
100%.
photographers are
Yep.
there. So I think
Yes.
I understand why they had to do that. I get that they needed to see them both in the house together, but I felt there are other ways. I mean, she could have like been following him, and just as the door opened, she was in the background. She didn't. I felt like him, like letting her go and face those people, just like him. It just seems so out of character. I know he's dazed by all the. I know they try to sort of sell it like that, but I was in that moment. Every time I see it, I'm like, I wish they could do that bit again and make it so it's not, I felt very, very disappointed in that, like 1 minute out of whatever, 100, 20 minutes or whatever. But that's my one flaw with the movie.
Yeah, I agree that I think they do. And again, I'm watching it this time around thinking they do try to make him look like he's dazed, but when the fact that he doesn't stop her, I think they could have, for sure, I agree with you, there could have been a different way that was handled. But it can almost kind of blind you to the because you can get caught, I think as watching it, you can get caught up in, would that have really happened? So when the blow up happens, you oftentimes, like, I haven't, whole scenes kind of felt a little bit messy to me compared to the rest of the film, but like watching it this time and really paying attention to her internal conflicts, I thought that her blow up was exactly what she would have done in that position. I think it made complete sense. But usually I've been overshadowed by that moment of, really, like, would she have opened the door? So yeah, for sure. But yeah, so I'm trying to think if I have anything else written in here. No, I've already covered all of that brilliant, wonderful stuff. Then we have like a nice long period of kind of that long dark night of the soul, which sort of between the black moment, we call it like a black moment, and then the light bulb moment. So there's this beautiful period in between, which is one of my favorite things to write, which is when everything's fallen apart and they've gone their separate ways and they're in their corners, licking their wound, thinking, I made the right choice, I did the right thing. There has to be kind of that thought process as to, okay, so now I've made this decision, this is what my life's going to be like without that person. And then they kind of go, that discussion with friends, or that thought process that gets them to, what the heck have I done? And this is just gorgeous because have, sort of Will visiting Anna on set, all of that thing's part of it. It's all like he's still kind of trying to work his way around it. And again, Anna is off screen the entire time. So you have to kind of imagine what she's going through on her own at this time as well, because we're given nothing. We have to really kind of like her enough to believe that for all that those moments have happened and the big blow up happened, that we like her enough, still want them to get together, because we don't get to see her long dark night of the soul. We don't get to see her mortification or embarrassment or oh my gosh, I'm so sorry I did that. You don't get to see any of that stuff happening until the moment that she turns up at the shop with the Chagall in hand. Oh my gosh. And like, of course, like when you look at, like, I think, when you guys talked about when Harry met Sally with the, the moment in the cafe, like the scene in the cafe, I'll have what she's having. It's like, this is the line from the movie, right? That everybody knows. So what did you think of the scene there?
I guess it's the whole, like, it's one of the Hollywood moments in the film, isn't it? Because it's a line that everybody, knows from.
For sure.
And it's like, a perfect line, as you're saying, kind of, bookends from, her internal conflict. It's her fear that she's not going to be seen as just a girl in love with a boy. That brings all the kind of her emotional, like, conflict chickens home to roost right there in that line. And then he rejects her in that moment, which just goes to prove to herself that she shouldn't have taken that risk, because of course this is going to happen. But what I like about that moment, one of the things I noticed about that moment was, again, how it compares their two worlds. Like, he has the Chagall print on his wall. She brings him the Chagall actual painting. Like, even then, they're constantly signaling how this great divide, between them. How are they ever going to get apart? Particularly in that moment when he's literally, rejected her after those, amazing heartfelt lines. But the fact that you've got the different two worlds, but the fact that they both love that same painting, like, it's like, again, it's like that, why each other, like, why him, why her. It's just so beautifully done. And I love at the very beginning of the chat we were having, talking about the different echoes and through lines that
we might have noticed this time, which is one of my favorite things to do as a writer, is having little moments that pop up 2 or 3 times through a book. And as a reader, I think it's such a great thing for readers, because what it does is it creates kind of a sense of sort of comfort and inclusivity and like in jokes between the writer and the reader. So anytime that you can have those little echoes pop up as a writer is just, it's only going to serve you well. So they had like, it was nice to meet you, surreal but nice, which he says sort of after she leaves, you know, is it before that? Yeah. And then she says it to him later on. And then there's the Horse and Hound, like that one just keeps popping up the whole way through. He just keeps like being this guy from Horse and Hound. The Chagall painting, the Henry James, the fact that he mentioned something about Henry James, and in the end, even after they've broken up, after the big fight, the next thing she does is a Henry James, which means that's where you see she's been thinking about him. We don't get to see it on the page. So just glorious, all these beautiful the through lines that they have.
So the desk guy at the hotel, when he rings a guest guy with the whole Pocahontas, and then he's at the end when he tries to get to tell her where Anna Scott's gone. So there was that.
And he becomes, I love that he becomes part of it too. Like it's like he's he's a bit of a block. He's one of the stumbling blocks, and in the end, even he's on their side. You know, it's
right. It's so good. Of course, there's a book ending of She, which we'll talk about. The garden, you know, in the middle and at the end as well. The 2 scenes in the restaurant that shuts down. There's like 2 like look at each other. There's how useless Bernie is as a cook, like all the way through it as well. Like 3 scenes where he burns things, where he makes weird things and out. And is it Martin, the bookshop, his work at the bookshop,
assistant,
constantly mixing, like he mixed up Demi Moore and her, and he thought he saw Ringo Starr on the high street, but it was actually Topol.
That's right.
So those little things.
Yes, that's right.
And I think as a writer that you don't realize, and I know that I do it all the time, I don't deliberately set out to do this a lot of the time. I don't realize I'm doing it. But when you get to another part and you realize you've done it a couple of times, and you realize actually that thing is more than you thought it was going to be. And that is magic.
100%.
I love that magic moment. I'm like, oh, that is absolute magic, that I can use this bit that I put back here for no reason other than I needed an object, or I needed a phrase, or I needed something. And then it becomes this echo all throughout the book. And it's just like, chef's kiss. Perfect.
For sure. And love it. And as a reader, it is such a thing, because it's like an Easter egg. You go, oh, hang on a sec, that's popped up again, and that had meaning from earlier, and it makes the reader become so much more a part of the story. So when you notice those little moments, I'm totally with you. I don't do it deliberately. It's suddenly something happens that you didn't even, a throwaway line that suddenly you think, oh my gosh, that suddenly has come up again, and you think, I had no idea that had meaning. Just to lean into those moments as a writer, I think will just serve the story so beautifully. And if we continue down the structure path, since there's just the structure of this spectacular, this is like one of my favorite things, talking about structure, is the end of this movie, when you go, that kind of the light bulb moment is just one of the most beautifully written scenes, when he's sitting in the empty restaurant with his friends, and they're all like, yep, you totally made the right choice, you just good for you, mate, like all good. And then he, Spike walks in and he explains what's happened. It's, you daft. And the realization that comes over Will's face, and he's like, oh God, what have I done? Like, it's the light bulb. You can literally you can almost see the light bulb pop over his head to know, oh my gosh, like the choice I've made is so bad.
What I like about that is, you're right, they're all being very, very supportive, but they've realised before him that he's made a mistake, but no one's going to say it except for Spike. No one. So even after Spike comes in and says you've done the wrong thing, and then his sister goes, no, it's okay, we're all in agreement. And he's talking to people, and the camera pans on each of their faces, and you can see each of the friends' faces thinking, oh, this is such a wrong decision. What's he doing? What an idiot. But they're not saying it until he then comes to realization himself that when whichever character it is that says, I can't think of his name, the stockbroker guy who says, well, that's nice, isn't it? Anybody who wants to go out here, that's nice, isn't it? And that's when he goes, the moment.
Yes, it's that simple. In the end, it's like all of the rubbish and nonsense and fame and all of that stuff, and his ex-wife, her ex-boyfriends, all of that mess of their lives. It's like, it's actually really nice if someone wants to go out with you. It's like it just boils down to that's literally how simple it is.
The real Chagall is like sitting there half unwrapped,
Yeah.
and it's just it is incredible writing. It's so, like, you're right. It's like a scene that takes 2 minutes. And it's just so well done. The light bulb moment is, awesome. Probably second only to the great grovel at the end. So actually, I guess we'll get to the grovel, but I was thinking, I don't know if you're getting that next, but there's actually 2 grovels really in this film. I hadn't thought about Anna's, I'm just a girl standing in front of a boy, but that is actually a bit of a grovel too. It's low key.
It is.
You don't often see 2 grovels, right? You usually only see one big grovel if you're going to get one grovel. So actually to see, I hadn't thought about that till I was looking at this time, that she's groveled a little bit there as well.
Which again, one of the reasons why this movie is so fabulous, because that it just gives them that balance. It's not just him apologizing or him doing anything. It's like both of them have had to kind of step out of their comfort zones and be very, very brave. And her being brave in that intimate space, like her saying that I'm just a girl standing in front of a boy, asking him to love her, is just so brave for her. And so for him to do it in front of, and he goes and does it in front of the whole world, like just kind of ones up. But I think when we're talking about structure, when we look at from the light bulb moment, it just goes bang. The movie then heads into act 3, which is the final act of the movie. And it's just, we talk about gather the troops and storm the castle. And that's literally what happens. He literally has all of his friends gather the troops. They all hop inside a station wagon. Even the fact that it's a station wagon, and it's not, if you look at it, it's not washed. It's a little, it has a couple of dents on the side. Like that's kind of his white steed as he's like heading to kind of sort of rescue her from her life, is just this, green station wagon. It's so beautiful. And the fact that all the friends who are the support mechanism are all with him. And then the declaration, for all of those public declarations can be kind of tricky to pull off, to feel as if they're realistic. It's just, I think they did it with such finesse and such almost tongue-in-cheek, like we're just going to lean in and give it as much romance as we can, and humor as well, makes it delightful, when it could have been like the intimacy of her declaration is just so beautiful, for his to be just so ridiculous in front of everybody. But again, the music chosen and the questions, the way that the other reporters sort of look at him when they start to realize who he is or become engaged in the conversation, it just adds this realism and humor. And the guy in the pink shirt, like I love the fact that he has his hand up and he looks around like he has no idea that everyone else in the room is in like blue and grey. He's just there in his pink shirt, just Mr. Thacker, just delight. It's so magical. And just the fact that the conversations they have with one another across the place with like the raised eyebrows, like just this, they almost have this silent language with one another, and there's just so much about it that you just go, oh, this is going to be okay. And then we head to our beautiful prologue, which, as you mentioned earlier, is this gorgeous bookend to the beginning. It bookends so many things. It's like it has the beginning where she's like, super famous, going about her super famous life. And in the end, it's still the same. Like she's still doing those things, but instead of being alone at the beginning, she's got him at her side. So showing that old world versus new world is just, it's so right out there. Like they don't hide it at all. It's so beautiful.
But actually,
and then that moment, which you tell me, you go.
But actually, the music starts playing at the end of the press conference. Then leads into her other life. And so when she starts playing, when all the cameras turn to him and they're looking at each other across the room, laughing and smiling and knowing that they're in love and they're going to be together, and I have to say that ending is the best ending ever in like a romantic rom-com comedy. I will go and often just YouTube that ending and watch it over and over, because there is absolute perfection. Everything about it is just, it gives me goosebumps. I love when the whole room starts to realize something's going on and they're not sure what, and you're right, they turn to him, they look, and then someone starts to take a picture, then they're all taking pictures and their friends are there and they're crying and they're all kissing each other, and it's just
it's magic. And it's not just one happy ending in that moment too, because you've got the married couple, you've got Spike and Honey, you've got the stockbroker character who suddenly turns to a girl, and like they kind of have a moment of like kiss, and it's like there's like 4 happy endings in this. So you just like, it's like layer upon layer upon layer of happy endings. It's just like the love and romance and sparkles blooming out of you watching it is amazing. I love the fact that you've got him and her life, which leads back to kind of that beginning shot But then when they decide to close it off with just that sort of the dolly shot going through the park and the kids all running around, and how it's, it was the first time they're there, it's all kind of moonlight and secluded, but this time it's all daylight and sunshine and warmth and just family and all good things. And then it goes to the two of them lying on the bench. Like, I would always say to people that is my idea of heaven, except I'd be reading and my husband would be pregnant. So the fact that it's the two of them just, and he's reading a book because he's a book lover, and she's just lying there just kind of feeling at peace. Honestly, that's just the best walking off into the sunset moment. To show that epilogue of we know that they're going to be okay, but to go ahead and just kind of show us how okay they are is just these. It's just the most. I'll cry.
It's a great epilogue. We talk a bit about, don't we, epilogues and prologues in the course, and there's always a debate about whether you should have an epilogue at all or a prologue. But this, those sort of last moments, the wedding, and then them and their normal life in the garden, perfect epilogue. I mean, I'm somebody who likes a big fat red bow tied on the end of all of my movies, so I like it to be, particularly my romances. So to me, that just was perfection. I just, and the music, like, it's such a, I hear She anywhere, and I'm like back in that movie at some point, because it's just such a visceral kind of a reminder for me of those amazing, beautiful scenes. And it's so good, so 100%. Good.
It's so beautiful. I love it. And I love I think we've covered all the things that we were hoping to cover and then some. So this will probably be our longest how to watch movies like a writer that we ever do, and I could probably talk for another hour, but I think we'll probably just leave it there. So hopefully we've given you lots and lots of information about Tropes, unless there's anything else you thought that we've missed. I'm cutting you off here. So are we happy?
I guess I just wanted to ask, I suppose,
sure.
It's very hard to ask. It's very hard to narrow it down. Do you have one line of dialogue that you like the most, or like a scene that you like the most? I couldn't answer that myself, so it's unfair. But
it was a really hard one. I wrote down a few lines, but I think I probably covered them, as we're going through. Like, I love the who left who, she left me, why she saw through me. I thought that was just an absolute stab to the heart, beautiful moment for a funny film. I really love that one. And when he says this is the place. Yeah, when he says this is the place and lets her in, and they're kind of the really true lines that aren't just there's so many funny lines and clever lines, but those lines that are just like, oof, kind of ones are, and being undercutting the humor.
Yeah, and that ilk too, when she says, before everything blows up at his house after they've, had the night together, she says, "Can I stay a bit longer?" He says, "Stay forever."
Stay forever. Oh my God, 100%. I love it. And then I love when Honey says, marry Will, you should marry Will, we can be like sisters. And she goes, I'll think about it. Like, you think, oh my God, they're just, they're like moments that you just kind of feel that clutch in your heart. Absolutely great ones. But yeah, so we've covered conflict and tension and dialogue, and a lot about structure, which I hope was really helpful for those of you out there who either love structure or find it struggle. It's those kind of sections in our How to Write Love course. We have so many people saying that they've gone to structure talks, they've learned about it before, but the way we put it together is really accessible and helpful and helps make sense of it all. So hopefully some of what we talked about here today will help you guys as well. Otherwise, I think we should leave it there so you guys can get on with your lives. But yes, so thank you so much for watching or listening to How to Watch Movies Like a Writer. If you like and subscribe to our channels, don't miss out. We've got lots more lined up. We cannot wait to talk about some of our favourite films, and even some films that we might disagree on as well, because, sort of breaking them down as to why they helped us or why they connected with us or not, I think is really helpful as a writer as well. So, and we'll put we'll put links in the end notes as well, as the things that we've been talking about, the courses and things we've been talking about as well. So there you go. Thank you so much for joining us and coming along as we gush over one of the best movies ever made. But yeah, next time, it was so nice to see you guys. See ya.
Thank you. Bye.